In 2020, Nintendo got into a lot of controversies, like a lot, but arguably one of their biggest ones was the arguably inexplicable limited release of Super Mario 3D Allstars, when they just announced, yeah, we're not going to be selling this game after March 31st, and everyone was like, why? It didn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense, but for the first time ever, Nintendo has actually kind of spoken as to why they're doing this in the first place, and let me tell you, it's not good. For as much crap as I and pretty much the entire internet gives gaming journalism, Polygon actually just had a really interesting interview with Doug Bowser, the CEO of Nintendo of America. Instead of just taking a knee and asking him softball questions so Nintendo would send Polygon review copies like, oh, what's your favorite Switch game, or stuff like that, this interviewer actually did a great job and got Doug to comment on a lot of issues that I feel like Nintendo really didn't want to comment on, which is super interesting. So even though I don't really do this ever, I wanted to take a bit of a chill video today and just read and kind of react to this entire article. I've already read it and I have like points for each section, just stuff that I want to talk about and I think is actually really interesting and could affect how Nintendo operates in 2021 and beyond. Naturally, this article goes over a lot of different stuff, so I tried to timestamp it to the best of my ability. You should be able to scrub along the timeline of this video to see exactly where you want to go if you want to like skip certain parts, but with that out of the way, let's get right into the video. So the first thing they talked about was COVID, and to be honest, Doug Bowser essentially confirmed what Nintendo has been avoiding saying for so long, but finally said, and that is that COVID actually really did impact them towards the start of the pandemic. If you guys remember, from Animal Crossing, which was March, all the way to, I'd say September, we didn't really have a single big Nintendo release besides Paper Mario. Sure, we had games like Clubhouse 51 Worldwide Classics, but I mean, does anyone even really remember that? I'm talking big actual Nintendo titles. Outside of Paper Mario, we literally didn't have one, and that was like over half a year. What was the most infuriating part was that Nintendo was giving off the impression that, you know, this wasn't because of COVID, they were just going about business as usual, but luckily Doug Bowser actually just came out and said, yeah, COVID kind of messed us up, and they had to switch stuff around to be more structured for the pandemic. That actually makes me feel a lot better about 2021, because it kind of confirms what we've all been thinking, that they had other games they wanted to put out in 2020, and naturally they've just been delayed to 2021. So on top of getting the 2021 games in 2021, we'll get some of the 2020 games, meaning that next year should be an absolute banger for the Switch as a whole. Before we jump into the next topic, I quickly want to ask you guys to subscribe. We're so close to hitting our goal of 100,000 subscribers, and I really want to do it before the end of the year. On top of that, one of the coolest projects I've ever made is being uploaded on this channel 2 days after this video goes live. It allows you, the viewer, to make your own Nintendo Direct. It's absolutely sick. I'll link the trailer at the end of this video, so just, I don't know, subscribe if you want to see that. Moving on, Doug Bowser talked about Animal Crossing, and you really can't talk about Nintendo in 2020 without talking about Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing's back probably hurts for carrying Nintendo throughout this entire year. I mean, they just went absolutely crazy. Animal Crossing surpassed everyone's wildest expectation, and Doug Bowser essentially confirms just that in this interview. Interestingly enough, he also touches on the fact that user-generated content is a really important part as to why Animal Crossing, you know, went so well. And that's interesting because Nintendo has never really leaned into user-generated content besides like with Mario Maker. Hopefully Doug Bowser, you know, talks to the developers over in Nintendo of Japan and actually, you know, lets them know that, hey, adding in sort of user-generated content or ways for users to express creativity in our games leads to better sales, because, I mean, it does. In the age of the internet, when people make something creative, they share it online, and then that's just a ton of free publicity for your game. I mean, I can't talk about how many times I saw, like, various Instagram posts or, you know, TikToks about, like, Animal Crossing Islands, I guess, towards the start of the year when that was a huge thing. So it's just free publicity, and it's also just really cool to be able to express your creativity in Nintendo games. So hopefully Doug Bowser is able to kind of pull some strings and make sure that there's more outlets for people to express their creativity in Nintendo's upcoming releases. Next up, Big Man Doug is probed about Xbox Gamepass, and essentially if it could ever come to Switch. He kept this answer pretty brief, just saying that they don't really know exactly. He gave a super generic business response as follows: "We are always looking at various ways that we can engage our consumers right now. We have found that our catalog and the third-party publishing catalog that's available, whether it's through Nintendo Switch Online or through frontline game purchase, has really been allowing us to do just that." Now, unfortunately, to me at least, that means that Xbox Game Pass it's not happening. I think that because he specifically mentions frontline game purchase, which is the normal eShop, and then Nintendo Switch Online, which is Nintendo's subscription service. And he says that as of right now, those have been working perfectly fine, and they're allowing him to do just that. The way I interpret that is him saying, yeah, Xbox Game Pass is cool, and it might be the future of the industry, but we're gonna hold off on now because we're chilling with what we got. Now here it is, the big boy question. I'm still kind of in shock that the Polygon person actually asked him this. This is something that, I would assume Nintendo wanted to be off limits, but hey, he got him to answer, so. The question, why are certain games being removed from the eShop after March 31st, 2021 was posed? And first off, Doug Bowser just said, oh yeah, it's just for the anniversary, blah blah blah. But the interviewer here actually kind of went in, saying they don't understand the consumer side of it, it just doesn't make sense, and they literally said, I just don't see the upside, quite honestly. Then here's probably the most interesting part of the entire interview to me. Doug Bowser says, yeah, at this point, the decision was really made around the celebration feature in that aspect. I can't speak to plans beyond the end of March. Obviously, this does not outright confirm anything, but if I were a betting man, I would say that this places more credence to my theory that at the end of March 2021, or maybe a bit after that, Nintendo will either be launching a new version of the Virtual Console where you can purchase games only available to Nintendo Switch Online Pass holders, or something along those lines, but they will be doing something with these older titles after March 31st. I feel like they have to be doing that. There's no way that that's not what they're doing. He even literally said, I can't speak to plans beyond the end of March. This interviewer never asked him about plans beyond March. He just said, why are these not being sold? He didn't ask if Nintendo was going to, do something to rectify that. And then Doug just goes, yeah, I can't speak to what we're doing post-March. I don't know. It seems a little bit fishy to me. Let me know what you guys think, though, down in the comments below. I think this is by far the most interesting part of the interview. However, that's not to say that the rest isn't juicy, because the interviewer then goes on to ask about the Nintendo Switch Pro. Specifically, the interviewer brings up rumors saying, hey, that, this was kind of rumored alongside the Switch Lite. We got the Switch Lite, when's the Switch Pro coming out? Bowser essentially shrugs off the accusation, saying that Nintendo is holding back games to launch on the Switch Pro, but then when asked directly if the Switch Pro is coming out, he points to the president of Nintendo, Shintaro Furukawa, stating that Nintendo believes they're just now at the midpoint of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle. As we drift right into the next section of this interview, Doug Bowser essentially just does what Nintendo's been doing for the past year and a half now, and downplays Joycon Drift as if it's not an issue that essentially ruins the console for a bunch of different people. Although he does do better than Shintaro Furukawa in this regard, because where Furukawa said that drift wasn't an issue at all, Bowser says that if you have an issue, you can contact them and, they'll make you send your Joy-Con in and hopefully they'll get fixed, and that their repair cycles are always looking at what's getting sent in and trying to make, the best console to their ability. So with that out of the way, hopefully you guys enjoyed this interview breakdown. This was a really chill video. I just wanted to take a look at this interview because Nintendo is very non-transparent, and so to see some sort of actual human at the face of the company right now, honestly, it's been a long time since we've seen something like this. Even though most of the questions Bowser might have just shrugged off or provided very small nuggets of information, just the fact that we know he's a real person and not a robot, it's really reassuring. If you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button down below, like the video, and drop a comment. As I said in the beginning, we're so close to 100K. Let's try and hit that goal before 2021. I'm Thomas from the Switched Up, signing off. Peace.